Alright, we've had these recovery points sitting here for a little while now and it's time to get them on. Solid units, they're heavy, they're big, shouldn't be too bad. We'll have a skim read of these, make sure we've got everything we need. We'll start fitting them up. These ones are the Road Safe brand and they're a 5,000 kilo rated tow points, ADR approved and everything as well. So we'll get everything laid out and we'll have a look under the car and we'll get started. Cool, got everything laid out. Going through our checklist here. One left, one right recovery point. We've got them there. 2 spacer plates and another 2 spacer plates. We've got them and them. Captive nuts. Got them, washers, 2 of 4mm thick here, nylock nuts, 12mm nylock nuts, beautiful. Those here, bolts, we've got our 2 bolts, our 4 bolts, and then here, and then our washers. We've got our washers here and our spring washers, so 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. That's everything we need. We'll start getting onto this and hopefully it's all fairly straightforward. So hopping under the car, our first job, we've got these skid plates here. We've got them on both sides, just here, and they're just held on by what looks to be 2 bolts. So we'll just buzz them out now. So the skid plates are off. Pretty basic looking, little bit of steel. Obviously the idea is that when you hit something on here, just skid off. So we'll get rid of them. Inner guard, we've got 3 bolts here. Three 10mm, we'll keep them aside. So the next bit we want to do, I'm not sure if you can see in here, but that hole underneath the body mount there, it's sort of covering the hole a little bit and we need to remove part of that so we can get better access to that hole. So we're going to work on that in a tick. Alright, so now what we needed to do under here, just use a step drill. We need to just get rid of some of this meat on here so that this pin can go through quite easily. Looking up in here, there's a plate on the other side of the chassis rail, so that pin goes straight through the chassis rail and meets up with here. So we'll set that up in there. Got the plate sitting up in here, got the pin going through up here. We'll go on to the next step now. Alright, I've just switched that plate around. That all threads in properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide the recovery point over the end of this pin and then we're going to use a washer and a nut to hold it on. And then the other 2 holes, it's got a special nut that sits on top of the factory recovery point and then the 2 spacers. And then the recovery point sits up on here. I'll get everything sitting up there loosely and I'll show you what it looks like. We'll go from there. So we've got the recovery point hanging out. You can see it's just on the thread. We're going to throw a washer and a nut on there and it just pops down here. There is a little space between the chassis and the mount there, but it does supply you spacers and washers. Obviously that space must differ between cars, so we'll get some spacers in there and we'll put the bolts in loosely, but that's what she's going to look like. Hangs down a little bit, probably a tiny bit more than the factory skid plate. It's going to be a lot safer as well and a lot stronger, so it'll be hard to do while I'm holding the camera, but I'll try and get some nuts and bolts on now. So these are our spacers. There's 2 different thicknesses, 2 thin, 1 thick. This is the bolt that sits on top of the recovery point. I'll show you that on the other side, how it sits in there. But literally just slot straight in on top. We've got a collection of bolts for the factory tow point. We've got some big washers and spacers because there's a small gap in there I'll show you now, and then our long bolts as well, so we'll pop them up in. Not sure if you can see, so it's pulled up nice and tight. It's all good. The only gap we're trying to fill now is here. 2 washers in there would almost be perfect. So they're the larger of the washers. So we want to go spring washer, washer. We're going to use 2 of these washers, and this is the specialty washer, the washer that just sits on the factory tow loop, and then we've got a nylock on the back, so that's all going to pull up pretty bloody good actually. We're going to do this one up first, then these two, and then that side one. That side one's actually got a slot so it can tighten up at whatever height, whereas these ones, this is going to set the main angle, this is going to set the height, and then we can bang the top one up to hold it onto the chassis. We've got one on, all good. We're going to pop on the other side now that we've got a good idea on what to do. If there was any tips I'd suggest, just fit everything loosely first, chuck all the bolts in, make sure they're all lined up, make sure you're happy with the spacer alignment as well, because this one did pull up quite tight on one side, almost like it would need another spacer or a very thin spacer, but there's only a certain amount in the kit. So once all the bolts are done up tight, it actually is pulled up quite nicely. I'll start the car up, turn the wheels the other way, and we'll get on that side and finish that off, and then we're done. So again, back to our steps. What we're going to do, undo these 10 mils. We've already got the skid plate off on this side here, so we will pop these 10 mils out. We'll get the step mill in the side of that chassis again, open up that hole so the pin can go through, and we'll go from there. Probably good to know to wear safety glasses while you're doing this. I don't know if your car is as dirty or dusty as mine, but I've got a ton of dirt in my eyes already, and especially when you're using a step drill or a die grinder as well, make sure you got your safety goggles on. Safety first. You're not going to need to be recovered if you damage your eyes and can't see and can't drive your car. So pop this out, it does pop right out. I'm going to try and clip that back. Yep, it's a good start. So in here you can see where we're using a step drill just to get rid of this little bit of meat on the side. That'll be enough. You can see what we've done here. Just taken a bit of this meat off this side, just so that pin can go all the way through to the hole on the other side where we put the metal plate on the other side of the chassis. Easy enough. A little bit fiddly getting that pin blindly into a hole. Once you get it though, you can feel it. Pins all through. Hook that up in there, and then we'll chuck some loose bolts down the bottom. Our special washer that sits on top of the recovery points. Beautiful. What I didn't do on the other one is put a big washer on the bottom, so I'm going to pull just this bolt out and put that big flat washer in there because that sits in there perfectly. I did miss that on the instructions originally. We'll sit that in there. All done. Done up. We'll chuck this guard back together. What I might do is with the 19 and the spanner, I'm just going to change over the bottom. So this one needs this in here. We'll pop this through again. Nice big flat washer and down nut. Recovery points all fitted on there nicely now. So basically the only tools that we really needed was a 10mm for undoing the lower plastic guard. We need a 19mm socket, a 17mm socket, and a 27mm socket, and a 19mm spanner. So as far as tools you need, it's all pretty basic and straightforward. I had got the whole job done with these. The only other thing I did need is either a die grinder, which it'll outline in instructions, or I used a step drill because at the moment we're in a caravan park and I don't have a whole heap of tools with me. This kit came in quite handy as well, even though we only needed a small selection of tools. So 1/2-inch socket, 17, 19 and 27, 19mm spanner just to hold the other side of the nut, step drill and the 2 sockets. So they're all fitted up. Quite nice, quite basic. It's pretty good. Get the car all packed up again now. That whole job took probably about half an hour, maybe an hour. I was dawdling along a little bit, so it was not rushed or anything like that, taking my time. But yeah, not a whole lot of tools, pretty easy. You could probably do it anywhere. I've done it in the caravan park. You can definitely do it at home, that's for sure. Easy. Hope that was a help for some people. Thanks, guys.